And thank you for once again for joining us for our guided meditation and Dharma talk here at the Blue Lotus Meditation and Mindfulness Center here in Brainerd, Minnesota. That's central Minnesota if you're not familiar with it. Today is December 25th, and it's about 6 p.m. here in the central time zone. I'm absolutely delighted that you are able to spend some of your precious and valuable time with us this wonderful evening. It's always nice when we can get together and practice mindfulness and have a enlightening Dharma talk. Just some brief announcements before we really begin, and I'd like to just bring your attention to our Dharma Institute. Right, we have wonderful classes that will help you with your mindfulness practice and your Dharma studies. Classes are now open and forming, and they are on a month-to-month basis if you choose. So find a class that you like, or you can take a certificate course if you choose. And also, if you have any wonderful scholarly articles, you're able to submit them as well. Maybe you've done some Dharma research and have a wonderful publication that you would like to share that joyfully promotes and teaches a lot of people, maybe who are unfamiliar with the Dharma, what you've learned and how it applies to their daily life. Or there are many topics that you could choose from. So go ahead and take a look at that if you like. We also have our wonderful weekly sanghas. These are free events for anyone to join. We have our healing sangha, our veterans sangha, our new beginning sangha, rainbow sangha, a welcoming sangha, and a teen sangha. Our teen sanghas are pretty popular and necessary, especially for these days that so many of our young practitioners and just young people in general are struggling with many topics that you and I faced when we were younger, but with a different sense of urgency these days with social media and so forth. Donations are always gladly accepted, and remember, they help support our causes, right? We have a wonderful teen camp in the summer, and donations absolutely help these youngsters learn mindfulness to help them as well. That's just one of the ways that donations help. And remember that they are U.S. tax deductible, and they're a wonderful way to earn merit as well. And there's a link in our description below. If that's something that you would care to do, that's perfectly fine. So why don't we begin with our 3 jewels before we begin our practice. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Wonderful. It's always appropriate to pay homage and respect to Lord Buddha before we begin practices and so forth. It allows us to acknowledge all the wonderful gifts and teachings that he has revealed to us to help us along our practice. So tonight's topic is when positivity becomes harmful, because it can, right? If it's not done appropriately, it can be harmful just as much as a negative statement may inflict damage upon our own well-being. So can too much positivity in some sense. And so to kind of tie along with that, our guided meditation for this evening is on right speech. Right? It's important to always speak appropriately and kindly towards one another. So go ahead and get yourself in your comfortable position. You may close your eyes or keep them slightly open with a soft focus, looking downward a few feet in front of you, if you choose. Breathe in. Pause. And breathe out. Wonderful. And you're warmly invited to allow that half smile to just rest on your face as well. Allow your spine to lift and your shoulders to soften. And soften your belly as you continue settling in. Breathe in. Pause. And breathe out. And let's meditate on right speech. Right speech is essential to maintaining virtue. Right speech allows for us to be a source of hope and refuge for others needing guidance. And there are 4 qualities for right speech to develop and nurture. Abstaining from lying. Abstaining from divisive speech. Abstaining from abusive speech. Abstaining from idle chatter or gossip. Breathe in. Pause. And breathe out. Speak only the speech that neither torments self nor does harm to others. That is speech that is truly well spoken. Speak only endearing speech. speech that is welcomed. Speech, when it brings no evil to others, is pleasant. These qualities are called right speech. It is through right speech that I am able to strengthen my virtue. It is through right speech that I am able to walk the path of liberation towards the cessation of suffering towards myself and others. Go ahead and begin to open your eyes slowly and to reorientate yourself to your surroundings before moving around. Wonderful. How we speak is so vital to developing that virtue. And when we do speak, and when we hear others speak, very often it is used with good intent. It is used to uplift and unite. But sometimes it can be used to mask some quality, and there could be many of them that maybe that particular group or individual wants to try to maybe minimize to some degree. But think about a time when you were overly positive towards someone whom you might have truly felt might not have been well prepared for some task or something. Maybe you were a teacher, right? And you knew or had a suspicion that maybe somebody wasn't quite ready for a test, but you allowed them to do it anyway. Or maybe a sports coach, right? And you knew the other team was perhaps vastly superior, right? You just allowed them to go out there and maybe suffer to some degree. It's important to be uplifting, don't get me wrong, right? It's important to be motivational and to offer hope and so forth, but sometimes they can be hurtful if there's a negative outcome. Or maybe you've even sat in a meeting, right, where something negative or truly harmful is just glossed over, right, with a sense of minimalism. We'll talk about that later. We'll get to that at some future point, or maybe it's not as bad as it seems. Right? When it is something that is necessary to address. Remember, right? Speech is not harmful, right? It's not divisive, right? It's truthful, right? But we say it in an endearing way, right? But sometimes if it's just everything is always sunshiny, right? If every day is a sunshiny day, then truly what is a sunshiny day, right? It's important to be balanced. in that regards. And we call this quality toxic positivity. And just as being overly negative or critical about a circumstance is detrimental to well-being, so can being overly positive, right? It keeps a veil of uncertainty, not allowing us to truly experience what the experience is. We may feel, or someone may feel, that this situation is negative and hurtful, when truthfully it could be used as an opportunity to grow, right? As an opportunity for us to truly experience balance and the Dharma in a way that is nourishing and enriching. So it's important to perhaps think about why some people or groups are promoting this toxic positivity. And like I have alluded to in a few moments ago, very often it's done with good intent to keep morale up, right? To keep you positive, to have you having a sense of safety or security, to have someone in your corner. And that's important. It truly is. But we also have to learn how to accept the negative. Very often that's just glossed over, right? We don't teach others, sometimes even ourselves, but we don't teach others how to truly experience the negative or the hardships that life inevitably presents us. And that too can lead to additional suffering. Oftentimes, perhaps that group or individual just doesn't even know how to properly address it. Right? There can be some uncertainty, in their mindset as well. So perhaps they just kind of gloss over it or minimize it to some degree. Or perhaps they just want to help alleviate any fears, about what could be coming in the future, or whatever that particular situation is. Again, I think, oftentimes it is done with good intent, but it can have, in and of itself, negative consequences, increasing suffering. So it's important to have right speech. And again, sometimes right speech does include, difficult conversations, and that's okay. So, but what does the Dharma say, right? So if we were to look into Buddha's teaching, what does the Dharma say about maybe not specifically toxic positivity, but right speech in general, right? So if we look at the Noble Eightfold Path, right, and the 5 precepts, right, the virtue of speaking the truth is clearly stated, right? So that's why we know it's a valuable and precious commodity and tool that we have, that we can share our knowledge and our experiences with others. Right? So right speech is important. So remembering, right speech, right, in the Noble Eightfold Path is non-divisive. Right? It's unifying. It's team building. Right? It's non-harsh. We're not overly critical. And we're not hurtful when we are critical, right? We have such a wide vocabulary, at our disposal. We can find appropriate wording to use, When we have to have difficult conversations with an individual or perhaps even a group. And right speech in the Noble Eightfold Path, again, is truthful. Right? It's truthful. So it's all three of those qualities at the same time. Truthful, non-harsh, and non-divisive. And then speaking truthfully in the 5 precepts. The second precept, right? Not lying, right? Not telling false stories or even omitting, certain information at times to make a situation seem different than it is. So even an omission, a deliberate omission from a statement is still considered lying. So it's very important, very, very important that when we speak, right, we're truthful, but yet again, right, including non-harmful, right, non-harsh and non-divisive when we communicate with others. So what is the harm? Let's think about that. It's an important avenue of discussion is what is the harm of toxic positivity or being too much or too positive in harsh or challenging situations. Well, right away, it violates both right speech and the 5 precepts. And that will slow us down on our own path towards enlightenment and liberation. But it also affects our virtue. Right? It also affects the virtue that we have. And it will inevitably cause suffering if that act or the task isn't successful. Right? So if we're telling someone that they are absolutely ready to advance to this next level, whatever it is, when we perhaps deep inside or even shallow inside feel that they're not and know that they will struggle, well, that's going to cause additional suffering. And how will that make that person feel when they find themselves struggling and not knowing where to turn? Right? Those are going to elicit senses of unworthiness in themselves. It's going to increase their own suffering in that respect. Perhaps it even begins of or elicits a path of fear of not trying new things. Right? Maybe not trying a test again or another promotion or, having a little bit of curiosity. Being curious is very important in mindfulness. Expressions of emotions of sadness and crying and depression, may result of too much of that toxic positivity. Increases suffering all around. And continued disillusionment. Right? Continued disillusionment of the world around them. Keeps that veil of uncertainty and does not allow one to see clearly. What about future suffering if perhaps it's completed? Perhaps they did get lucky. Maybe they did pass that test. So what kind of suffering could be a response or manifest itself if they were successful? perhaps a false sense of well-being. Right? Thinking that everything is okay when perhaps it may not be. It's nice to have those warm, nurturing feelings inside us, but they also have to be truthful to ourselves. Perhaps it elicits a false sense of balance, a false sense of accomplishment. They may have gotten lucky, perhaps, on a test or on this task or game or whatnot. And that is good. That is a good thing. But sometimes when that occurs, we embark on and set ourselves up for future failure, right? Because maybe some arrogance began to develop. And then not knowing how to appropriately fail was not learned, which leads to continued disillusionment. Perhaps making that, wonderful accomplishment of passing, did occur. But then there was a little bit of disillusionment because maybe a little bit of arrogance. Like, wow, I'm really good at this. I'm just going to jump on to the next one. And maybe that does not turn out as well as one would hope. So it's very important to, it's very important, to uplift one another and to be supportive. It's what we're here for, right? To spread that kindness, have compassion and empathy. But we also have to use good judgment in being truthful. And if you do have concerns, right, state them in a way that is developmental for the other person. And remembering that being truthful and positive really supports positive karma. Right? It supports positive karma, not only for us, but for others as well. And so it is. It's very important to just be truthful. So let us know what you think, right, in the comments below. We always enjoy your wonderful comments and responses to our Dharma talks and our other postings as well. We reply all the time and are very delighted in helping you nurture your own mindfulness and Dharma practice as you progress along your own journey. So we can end our wonderful time together this evening, again with our 3 jewels. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. And I want to wish all of our practitioners that do celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa very joyous season's greetings. Wish you all a very happy and blessed New Year's and a wonderfully successful 2023 and a very prosperous upcoming 2024. I wish you and your families many, many blessings in the upcoming year. We will see you in 2 weeks for our next Dharma talk. Thank you for coming.